Now it's less than 48 hours to the D-Day when this particular by-elections will be held, and as the clock keeps ticking, it feels like a ticking bomb. Each camp tries to do everything possible within their camp to secure this win to their camp within the 48 hours remaining. If you're joining the People's Mirror for the first time, please hit the subscribe button. We are fairly a small channel and we have a target of hitting the 1,000 subscribers mark by the end of this week. So if you're joining us for the first time, please just hit the subscribe button so that you help us in that journey, and also we bring for you this particular commentaries in the Kenyan political scene as they occur. In our previous episode, we have captured the two ward by-elections that shook the political angle all the way to the State House. There was a ward by-election, or there is a ward by-election that's supposed to happen in Nyamira, and also there is a ward by-election that's supposed to happen in Narok. And out of all the other ward by-elections that are supposed to happen in Kenya as part of the 24 by-elections that we are to witness moving forward, these two ward by-elections have had the effect of shaping the Kenyan political scene, or shaking rather the Kenyan political scene all the way to the top seat. So the one at Nyamira in Narok we have detailed in our previous episode. We will not spend much time on it. However, I will make this commentary on why they have the effect, or rather they have shaken the Kenyan political hierarchy all the way to State House. You see, Nyamira is the backyard of Okengo Matiang'i. Now, Mr. Matiang'i does not have any political party of his own, yet he has presidential aspirations for 2027. And so he is rallying on the Jubilee Party to give him support in 2027. And so while rallying on this particular Jubilee Party, to give him support in 2027, it is primarily very, very important that he secures his backyard support. And so the statements that were being made in Nyamira were not being made in favor of the ward or member of county assembly aspirant specifically. If anything, that was just a by the way statement in the statements that were made by politicians in that area. It is an opportunity now for Okengo Matiang'i to make speeches in his own backyard and rally support is in his own backyard, either as a negotiating factor in the table in 2026 when they're going to come together and agree as the members of the united opposition. But in the long end is that if he's selected as the candidate that the united opposition will rally behind, then at least he has his backyard support. And so this particular by-election gives him an opportunity, a political environment ahead of 2027 to actually make political statements and leave the people deciding between now and 2027 whether or not they have a kingpin of their own or otherwise. And so that's why even Natembea's and Matiang'i ticket conversation came from Boni Khalwale, because looking at it from that angle, it shows that even if the united opposition were not to pick him and the Jubilee narrative of going solo was to be kept, then he will only be tapping on the second most populous community in Kenya, which is the Luhya, by taking a voice from the Luhya land, and also will be relying purely on the goodwill of the Uhuru Kenyatta in the Jubilee Party from the mountain area to divide the mountain votes. And he will have a hard task to go back to Nyamira and Nyanza to have a backyard rally behind him as a presidential candidate. And so the by-election of a ward member in Nyamira has had the opportunity of giving a presidential candidate an opportunity to make a political statement in a ripe political hour ahead of 2027. Then there is the Narok one. The Narok one has the effect, because now it has come to public limelight, that while Rigathi Gachagua is going to campaign for his DCP candidate in Narok County, what happened is that he was stopped by the government. Of course, while this might have just been a small MCA by-election, the fact that Rigathi Gachagua was stopped by the government from accessing Narok has now escalated it to something very, very big. And so I don't know how it's going to play out for the DCP candidate, but this could be an advantage for the DCP candidate to rally on that particular humiliation that was meted at the DCP party leader, for Mr. now Douglas Maskonde to use that opportunity to become the MCA of Narok Town Ward. But the involvement of Patrick Ntutu, the governor, and the blame being given all the way to President Ruto also shows that this particular small by-election of Narok County Town had the effect shaking the political scene to the governor's seat of Narok and all the way to the president. And while Rigathi Gachagua was leaving that party, he made sure that he called upon the people of Narok to actually one-term Mr. Patrick Ntutu. Now, away from those two ward elections that had the effect of shaking the Kenyan political scene that much, there are also yet other political, or rather other seats that are being contested that have had a very interesting outplay. Magarini is one of the constituency where now the united opposition is blaming the IEBC for being in cohort with the government, and now for actually shaping, or rather reshaping, the outplay or outlook of that by-election. Mr. Abdallah, who is the vice chairperson of Mr. Ethekon, is now being put on the spot by the members of the united opposition, and Rigathi is claiming that he had a meeting with Mr. Mungaro, who is the governor of Kilifi, and they have since agreed to change the presiding officers that were there previously with new presiding officers in Magarini, so as to deliver this win to the government. Now, Mr. Murongaro has allegedly paid for these services in deposit, and so is waiting to pay for the full amount once that is done after the elections on the 27th. Of course, IBC is expected to be very, very lawful, impartial in their, carrying out of their mandate, and also these elections are setting the tone for 2027. So we are really looking at how the IBC are going to carry them out. I don't know if Karisa Kenga wins, whether or not the united opposition will still say that Mr. Murangaru was actually paid and there is deposit owed to the presiding officers, or whether this is actually an insurance for when they lose in Magarini, they can now say that Mr. Murangaru actually paid the presiding officers and have cleared his deposit. And so that particular shifting mindset on the voters' mind ahead of these elections being held is something that the united opposition should be called out of and should not do. We should actually just hope on the impartiality of the IEBC until they prove otherwise. There is no need to poison the voters' mind with ideas of this without proof. And so if proof will surface that Mr. Murangaro has paid these individuals, then it will be a very, very bad blame for the government to actually pay for the presiding officers to deliver a win to their end. Now, Magarini has those talks of rigging elections that are very damning ahead of this particular 48 hours left, and we hope to see in the next 72 hours whether this will play out that way or not. Then there is Homa Bay County, which is also very interesting. The governor of Homa Bay County is the chairperson of the ODM party. And Gladys Wanga has a candidate in Kasipul called Boyd Were, the son of Ongondo Were. Now it turns out that both Gladys Wanga and the deputy of Gladys Wanga, Mr. Magwanga, are in different camps, with Mr. Magwanga now rallying support for Aroko Otete. Aroko Otete is the independent candidate in Kasipul. And so Mr. Magwanga has distanced himself from his boss and also from his party, and is joining hand with Mr. Aroko, who also is receiving huge support from the UDA party in Homa Bay. So with this division in the office of the governor, we are trying to take a look at Homa Bay, how this is going to play out for them or against them, being the ODM candidate, and the fact that Kasipul has predominantly been an ODM backyard. So interestingly, that major political showdown is happening where Magwanga, who was the people's choice before Raila asked Magwanga to become the vice of Gladys Wanga, is now fully distancing himself from Gladys Nyasuna Wanga. These are some of the things that Gladys Wanga is suffering from after the death of Raila Odinga. You remember Millie said that she's taking the loss very negatively. Now you remember after that has happened, after Raila has gone, even the closest allies that were closer to Wanga as a result of the Raila effect are now distancing themselves from her. And the first is the deputy, Mr. Magwanga, who is now rallying that support for Aroko Otete. Remember, also Evans Kidero vied to become the governor of this very county. And the reason why Kidero did not win was because of the Raila's effect on Gladys Wanga. So if Kasipul could actually go to a contrary political team that is not the ODM party, then it would be opening open doors for anyone that wants to contest in the Nyanza area to take it up now without the Raila effect that had previously dominated that particular area. Then there's Mbeere North. Mbeere North's fight has now been reduced to David versus Goliath, with Kindiki becoming the David and Rigathi Gachagua being termed as the Goliath. Now, just like the biblical contest between David and Goliath, Kindiki intends to use just one stone and a sling to overdo the Goliath effect of Rigathi Gachagua in this area. This is actually going to be very interesting to watch, considering the fact that they had both promised a 10-day stay prior to these particular elections, and a few hours ago Rigathi Gachagua aborted his camp and was in Narok campaigning for the DCP candidate. So we don't know whether or not Kindiki took advantage of that particular exit of Rigathi's from his camp, and now, just like David, who was looking at Saul's camp whenever Saul was around or not around, whether now he intends to attack with his one sling on that D-Day, and whether that sling will have the effect of not only bringing Lewa Mudende as the new member of parliament from Mbeere North, but will also have the effect of finishing Rigathi's dominance in the mountain area. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, there is Malava constituency, which we take a look at, both mixed with Chwele in Kabuchai constituency. Now, Chwele in Kabuchai constituency is a place where the united opposition cannot go anymore. The goons of Wetangula and Ford Kenya have made it clear that Chwele in Kabuchai constituency is a no-go zone, not only for Natembeya, but for anyone who is associated with the united opposition. This comes even if it's a constitutional right for people to access every part of this country to seek political seat that they desire from any part of this country. The supporters of Ford Kenya and Wetangula are now making Kabuchai, specifically Chwele ward, a no-go zone for members of the united opposition. This is coming after an attempt was made in the life of Natembeya in this particular area. So these by-elections are yet to happen in less than 48 hours from now, and there is tension in each part of it. In Mbeere North, Rigathi Gachagua was almost stabbed while leaving a church ceremony. In Homa Bay County, we have since lost 5 people since these particular by-elections were announced. In Chwele Kabuchai, they almost took the life of Honorable Natembeya while he was campaigning. And in Magarini constituency, Mungaro is already being blamed of voter rigging ahead of elections happening. There is tension across the 24 stations. At the People's Mirror, we keep our mirrors in all these 24 stations to keep you updated on anything worthy of recording that happens between now and the 27th, which is just some hours and a few minutes, and even beyond then into the gap between 27th and 28th, when the people will be announced, or when these leaders will be announced to replace the previous leaders in these 24 stations, when we will be putting a stop on our trail of these particular by-elections. So keep it at the People's Mirror. We will keep you updated on anything that happens out of these stations between now and when the winners of these stations will be actually declared.